Welcome back to the channel where we uncover the untold stories behind reality TV's most shocking scandals. Today we're diving into the dramatic and emotional story of 90 Day Fiancé star Luke Bryan and his ex-wife, Madelein Perez. This is a story filled with love, betrayal, hidden money problems, courtroom drama, and a shocking twist that left fans stunned. For nearly 10 months, Madelein Perez was secretly involved in a romantic relationship with a banker named Thomas. What began as a private connection slowly turned into a deep and serious affair. During this time, Thomas learned about Madelein's hidden financial troubles. She was carrying a secret debt of $200,000, something she never told Luke about. Instead of walking away, Thomas promised to take full responsibility for paying off her debt. As a result, their relationship grew stronger. They began spending more time together, staying in five-star hotels and sharing intimate moments that showed how close they had become. A few weeks later, Madelein discovered she was pregnant. Medical tests later confirmed that the baby she was carrying shared Thomas's DNA. When Luke Bryan found out about the affair and the pregnancy, he was devastated. The news caused intense emotional pain. Heated arguments followed, and the marriage quickly fell apart. Eventually, Madelein made her decision clear. She told Luke that she only wanted to be with Thomas. Soon after, she filed for divorce. Unable to cope with the betrayal and emotional shock, Luke attempted to take his own life. Thankfully, he survived. Afterward, Luke accused Madelein of embezzling $150,000 from his savings and giving the money to Thomas. The case went to court, and after a long legal battle, the court ruled in Luke's favor. The judge found that Madelein had indeed taken the money illegally. As a result, she was sentenced to 3 months in prison. Now, Luke Bryan has made a new decision. He is preparing to move forward with his life and plans to get married again. This is the story of how Luke Bryan's marriage collapsed, how Madelein Perez risked everything for another man, and how Luke is now preparing to rise from the ashes and start a new chapter. Luke Bryan was no stranger to the spotlight. As a recognizable face from 90 Day Fiancé, he was known as a hopeful romantic who believed in love, even when the odds were against him. When he met Madelein Perez, fans believed they were the perfect match. Their chemistry was obvious. Luke's calm and steady nature balanced Madelein's fiery and ambitious personality. Their relationship moved quickly. They went on glamorous dates, attended public events, and shared loving posts on social media. Luke often wrote emotional captions, calling Madelein his forever. Madelein proudly showed off their life together, posting luxury dinners, vacations, and romantic moments that looked like something out of a movie. To fans, they seemed strong and unbreakable. But behind the smiles and perfect photos, problems were already forming. Luke's deep devotion sometimes clashed with Madelein's desire for more. She wanted more luxury, more recognition, and more financial security. Luke supported her dreams, but he believed that love should be built on trust, honesty, and sacrifice. At first, these differences seemed small, but over time, they became serious cracks in the marriage. Still, Luke and Madelein remained inseparable in public. They attended red carpet events, gave interviews, and even talked about starting a family. Fans loved them, and the media called them one of reality TV's strongest couples. Luke truly believed he had found his soulmate. Madelein, at least on the surface, appeared just as committed. But while the cameras were rolling and the world was watching, a secret was growing in the background. While Luke was planning a future, Madelein was quietly stepping into a dangerous double life. That double life included Thomas. Thomas was a successful banker with wealth, confidence, and charm. He entered Madelein's life at a time when she was overwhelmed by debt and pressure. What started as casual conversations slowly turned into something much more serious. The affair became emotional, then physical, and eventually impossible to hide. Madelein's financial problems played a major role in her choices. She had kept her $200,000 debt hidden from Luke, fearing judgment and disappointment. When she finally opened up to Thomas, she expected criticism. Instead, he offered comfort and solutions. He promised to take care of her debt and remove the burden she had been carrying in silence. For Madelein, this wasn't just about money. It felt like escape. Thomas offered her a future filled with security and luxury. Their secret meetings became more frequent. They stayed together in expensive hotels, shared dreams, and talked about a life without Luke. Meanwhile, Luke had no idea what was happening. He continued to show love publicly, unaware that Madeline's heart was drifting away. To the outside world, their marriage still looked perfect. But behind closed doors, Madelein was becoming more distant, emotionally tied to the man who had offered her both romance and financial rescue. The secrecy added excitement and danger. Madeleine convinced herself she deserved this happiness. Thomas enjoyed the control he had, not only over her finances, but over her emotions. Together, they built a hidden world of luxury, lies, and betrayal. By the time Luke finally discovered the truth, it was already too late. This wasn't just a troubled marriage anymore. It was betrayal at its deepest level. Madeleine had crossed a line she couldn't return from. With Thomas's promises guiding her decisions, she was willing to risk everything. Her marriage, her reputation, and her future. What followed would become one of the most shocking scandals in 90 Day Fiancé history. Behind Madeleine Perez's glamorous lifestyle was a storm waiting to explode. While the world saw luxury and fame, she was drowning in debt and deception. Every smile was a mask. Every post was a distraction. And Thomas, the banker she trusted, became both her escape and her downfall. He promised to take full responsibility for her debt and swore he would pay it off completely. For Madeleine, this was never just about money. It was about trust, closeness, and the powerful feeling of being saved. In Thomas's arms, she found not only romance, but relief from a burden she had carried alone for so long. His promise became the foundation of their forbidden connection. Each time Thomas reassured her, Madeleine felt herself drifting further away from Luke. Slowly, she stopped seeing Thomas as just a lover. She began to see him as the man who could change her future. Their relationship grew deeper with every late-night call and every secret meeting in five-star hotels. To Madeleine, Thomas represented freedom. Freedom from debt. Freedom from lies. Freedom from a marriage that now felt suffocating. Meanwhile, Luke remained completely unaware. He noticed small changes in Madeleine's behavior. Late nights, missed calls, moments when she seemed distant or distracted. But he brushed them off, blaming stress, fame, and the pressure of public life. Luke had no idea his wife was living a double life. Bound to another man by promises of financial rescue, Luke's trust, once his greatest strength, became his greatest weakness. The hidden debt was more than a money problem. It was the starting point of betrayal. By hiding it from Luke, Madeleine had already broken the trust holding their marriage together. And by allowing Thomas to become her savior, she created a bond stronger than any vow she had made to her husband. Every dollar Thomas promised to pay was another step away from Luke, another crack in their marriage. This part of their story showed how dangerous love and money can become when mixed. Madeleine's desperation for financial freedom pulled her into Thomas's arms, and his willingness to carry her debt turned their affair into something far more serious. It was no longer just about romance. It became about survival, loyalty, and the power of promises. Luke still had no idea what was coming. But soon, the cracks in Madeleine's double life would split wide open, and the secret she buried would explode with devastating consequences. The affair between Madeleine Perez and Thomas was no longer a brief secret. It became a lifestyle built on luxury, lies, and betrayal. While Luke believed his marriage was stable, Madeleine was slipping deeper into nights of indulgence with the man who promised her escape. Thomas spared no expense. Five-star hotels became their hiding places, where they could avoid the public and forget about Luke. Inside those private rooms, surrounded by luxury, they created a world that belonged only to them. Champagne flowed freely. Candlelit dinners lasted until morning. Soft words and whispered promises filled the air. Each night they spent together made it harder for Madeleine to return to her life with Luke. In those moments, she felt desired, protected, and free. Thomas was no longer just a lover. He was a provider, a rescuer, a man who had saved her from financial collapse and offered her the life she wanted. Every hotel stay reminded her of the path she had chosen, even though it meant betraying her marriage. Luke, meanwhile, remained trusting and hopeful. He noticed her absences and vague excuses, but his faith in Madelein never wavered. He convinced himself her distance came from stress and ambition. He had no idea that while he waited for her, she was in another man's arms, living a life that no longer included him. The secrecy only made the affair stronger. Madelein felt excitement in the lies, telling herself she deserved happiness after years of struggle. Thomas enjoyed the control he had, not just over her finances, but over her heart. Together, they built a hidden world of excess and secrecy, a world Luke would only discover when it was too late. But every moment of indulgence came at a cost. Each night away was another step toward destroying her marriage. The affair was no longer about desire alone. It became about escape and rewriting the future. And as Madelein and Thomas grew closer, the storm waiting for Luke grew darker. This was the moment where betrayal could no longer be denied. Madelein had chosen her path, and the consequences were closing in. The affair had already crossed every line of loyalty, but nothing could prepare Luke or the public for what came next. It started quietly. Madelein noticed changes in her body. At first, she blamed stress and exhaustion, but deep down, she knew something was different. A visit to the doctor confirmed it. She was pregnant. The news alone was shocking, but the true devastation came with the test results. The baby was not Luke's. It was Thomas's. For Madelein, the truth was terrifying and freeing at the same time. Terrifying because her secret could no longer stay hidden. Freeing because it gave her a reason to leave Luke and fully choose the life she had been building with Thomas. In her mind, the child represented a fresh start. Thomas accepted the news without hesitation. He promised to stand by her, to raise the child together, and to build a family. His confidence only strengthened Madelein's belief that Luke no longer belonged in her future. Luke was completely blindsided. When the truth reached him, it shattered everything. The man who believed in loyalty and love now faced the ultimate betrayal. His wife was pregnant with another man's child. The emotional damage was immediate and overwhelming. Arguments followed, filled with anger and pain. Luke demanded the truth. Madelein stopped hiding. She admitted everything. The affair, the debt, her connection to Thomas. She told Luke she wanted to leave him and start a new life with the man who had promised her everything. The pregnancy was the breaking point. What had once been whispers of betrayal became undeniable reality. Fans watched in disbelief as the once perfect relationship collapsed. What started as a love story turned into a warning about secrets, temptation, and broken trust. For Luke Bry, this was the moment everything changed. The woman he loved was carrying another man's child, and the marriage he fought to protect was beyond saving. The revelation crushed him. Luke had built his life on love and loyalty, and suddenly it was all gone. At first, he refused to believe it. He told himself the tests were wrong, that there had been a mistake. But the truth kept closing in. Denial turned into despair. Luke withdrew from everyone. Friends said he barely spoke. He stopped appearing in public and disappeared from the spotlight. The man once known for hope and strength now looked completely broken. Every conversation with Madelein turned into a fight filled with pain, tears, and anger. Luke demanded answers, his voice shaking as his world fell apart. Luke demanded answers, his voice shaking with pain and disbelief. He wanted to understand how everything had fallen apart so completely. Madelein listened, but her silence spoke louder than words. She no longer tried to comfort him or explain herself. Her heart had already moved on. What followed were days filled with shouting, tears, and long nights of silence where neither of them slept. Madelein finally made her decision clear. She told Luke she was ending the marriage. She said she wanted to be with Thomas and raise the child with him. The words cut deeper than any argument. For Luke, it felt like the final blow. The woman he loved was not only leaving him, but doing so without regret. The divorce process was fast and brutal. Lawyers became involved, and private pain turned into public knowledge. Media outlets picked up the story, and fans reacted with shock and disbelief. Luke, once admired for his devotion, was now the face of a public scandal he never asked for. Every headline reminded him of what he had lost. As the divorce moved forward, Luke's mental health began to collapse. Friends noticed alarming changes. He stopped answering calls. He barely ate. His home became a place of isolation rather than comfort. The betrayal replayed in his mind constantly. The affair, the pregnancy, the lies, the feeling that his entire marriage had been an illusion. The emotional weight became unbearable. Luke felt humiliated, abandoned, and empty. One night, overwhelmed by despair, he reached a breaking point. In a moment of deep darkness, Luke attempted to take his own life. Thankfully, he survived and received emergency care. News of the attempt shocked fans and deeply concerned those close to him. After his recovery began, Luke slowly found the strength to speak out. For the first time, he started to examine the financial side of his marriage. As he reviewed records and bank statements, something didn't add up. Large sums of money were missing from his accounts. Money he never authorized, never spent, and never knew was gone. Luke soon realized the truth. Over time, Madelein had taken $150,000 from his personal savings. According to Luke, that money had been transferred to Thomas. What once felt like betrayal of the heart now revealed itself as betrayal of trust on every level. Luke decided to take legal action. He filed a lawsuit accusing Madelein of embezzlement. The case quickly gained attention. Court documents exposed details that stunned the public. Evidence showed a clear trail of unauthorized transfers and secret transactions. During the court hearings, Luke testified about his emotional and financial devastation. He described how he trusted Madelein completely and how that trust was abused. Madelein, facing mounting evidence, struggled to defend her actions. Thomas's involvement was also examined, though he denied wrongdoing. After weeks of testimony and review, the court reached its decision. The judge ruled in Luke's favor. The court found that Madelein had illegally taken $150,000 from Luke's savings and used it without his consent. The verdict was a turning point. Madelein Perez was sentenced to 3 months in prison. The sentence marked a dramatic fall from the glamorous lifestyle she once displayed online. Cameras that once captured luxury now captured her entering the legal system. The woman who chased freedom through secrecy now faced the consequences of her choices. For Luke, the ruling brought mixed emotions. There was relief in being believed. Relief in knowing the truth was finally public. But there was no joy. The victory came at the cost of his marriage, his mental health, and his sense of safety. While Madelein served her sentence, Luke focused on healing. Therapy became a regular part of his life. Slowly, he began rebuilding himself piece by piece. He reconnected with family and close friends who had stood by him during his darkest moments. Away from the cameras, Luke learned how to sit with pain instead of running from it. Public support began to shift in his favor. Fans expressed sympathy and admiration for his honesty and resilience. Messages of encouragement flooded his social media. For the first time in a long while, Luke felt less alone. As time passed, Luke started to rediscover parts of himself he had lost. He returned to creative projects and small public appearances. He spoke openly about mental health, betrayal, and recovery. His vulnerability resonated with many who had faced similar pain in silence. Meanwhile, Madelein's reputation suffered lasting damage. The scandal followed her everywhere. Brand deals disappeared. Public trust vanished. The life she had hoped to build with Thomas no longer looked as secure as she imagined. While Thomas remained in the background, the fantasy they created together had been stripped of its shine. Luke chose not to focus on revenge. Instead, he focused on moving forward. He accepted that the past could not be changed, but the future could still be written. Slowly, he allowed himself to believe in happiness again. Eventually, Luke met someone new. This time, the connection grew quietly, away from the spotlight. There were no flashy posts or public declarations, just honesty, patience, and mutual respect. For Luke, that was enough. He later shared that he was preparing to marry again, not as a fairy tale ending, but as a symbol of survival. A reminder that even after betrayal, heartbreak, and loss, life could still offer love. Luke's story became one of caution and resilience, a reminder that trust is powerful, secrets are destructive, and healing is possible. What began as a reality TV romance ended as a real-life tragedy, but it also became a story of survival. From the ashes of betrayal, Luke Bry chose to rise. And while the scars remain, he continues forward, stronger, wiser, and ready to begin a new chapter.